I was playing point by point, and eventually I didn't have that chance anymore, but I kind of think of it more as an opportunity. Like, I had the opportunity to, I'm not even sure if I had a match point. Maybe I did. I did? That sucks, but
Tennis star Alex Eala making tennis history once again. Her 5-match wins in WTA 1000 tournaments this season are the most for any Asian teen since Naomi Osaka in 2017. WTA 1000 is the highest level of competition in women's tennis. 4 of those victories were at the Miami Open, while the 5th was against Victoria Tomova at the Madrid Open last Monday. Ayala's round of 64 match is at 2:30 a.m. Friday, Philippine time. She will face world number 2, Iga Swiatek, one of the 3 Grand Slam champions she defeated in Miami. Eala is currently women's world number 72.
She stopped walking, not slowed down, not hesitated, just full system shutdown. Naomi Osaka, 4-time Grand Slam champion, a player who has stared down match points, media storms, and expectations heavy enough to crack concrete, suddenly froze in place inside the Porsche Arena in Stuttgart. And no, this wasn't a championship moment. No trophy, no dramatic final rally, no confetti cannons waiting in the wings. This was something far stranger. Something that made even a seasoned champion blink twice and think, hold on, what exactly am I watching here? Because whatever this was, it didn't feel like tennis anymore. It felt bigger, louder, warmer, almost cinematic. Like someone had taken a standard WTA tournament and accidentally turned the dial all the way up to national celebration instead of sporting event. And honestly, Osaka wasn't wrong, not even close. All week, the atmosphere inside that arena had been building like a pressure cooker with a broken lid. Stuttgart, usually precise, calm, organized down to the last detail, had completely lost its usual personality. This wasn't the quiet, efficient stop on the tour anymore. This was something else entirely. An estimated 55,000 Filipino fans had poured into the city like a tidal wave of energy.
And you're going to get honest feedback. She's the greatest player, the female player that ever lived. Then the lady said to me, I don't remember which one, but she's...
And they didn't just casually show up, they arrived. From Frankfurt, from Munich, from anywhere a plane, train, or questionable overnight bus route could possibly deliver them. Hotels, gone, restaurants, overflowing, local baristas. Suddenly learning how to spell mabuhay on coffee cups. The streets outside the arena turned into a sea of red, blue, and yellow, like someone had copy-pasted an entire nation right into the middle of Europe. For a few surreal days, Stuttgart didn't feel like Stuttgart at all. It felt like the Philippines had packed its bags, grabbed its flags, and said, we're taking this show on the road. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because that wasn't even the moment that stopped everything cold. Nope. The real turning point came after the scoreboard had already made its decision. Alex Eala had just finished her match. Straight sets, 6-1, 6-4 against Leylah Fernandez. On paper, a clean, clinical result. The kind that usually wraps things up quickly and quietly. 3rd consecutive, first-round exit. Not ideal, not headline-grabbing. Definitely not the script anyone writes home about. In the traditional rhythm of tennis, this is where things move fast. Players disappear down the tunnel, rackets tucked away, emotions carefully zipped up. Reporters start typing. Fans start leaving. The energy fades like the last note of a song no one claps for. That's how it's supposed to go. But Alex Eala? She looked at that script and casually tossed it out the window like yesterday's practice balls. Instead of walking away, she turned and walked straight toward the stands. At first, it was simple. One autograph, then another, then a few more. Nothing unusual. Until it became very unusual. Because it didn't stop. Not after 5 minutes, not after 10, not even after 30. Minutes stretched into an hour like time itself decided to take a coffee break. Caps, shirts, flags, posters, anything fans could extend over the barrier became part of this growing, unscripted moment. And Alex Eala? She didn't rush.
The turnout this year has grown significantly, I would say, from the past years. So I'm just so happy to see this environment and, people are excited. And when I'm on court, they're excited to see me. So, it's flattering and it makes me feel welcome.
Didn't glance at the clock. Didn't give even a hint of, okay, last one. At one point, someone reached out with an Olympic medal. Yes, an actual medal, flown in from the Philippines like it had its own boarding pass. Alex paused, looked at it carefully, smiled, and signed it like it was the most normal request in the world. Because at that point, why not? She posed for photos again and again, each one with the same energy as the first. No half smiles, no autopilot mode, just full presence, like every single interaction mattered, because to those fans, it absolutely did. She hugged children who will probably talk about that moment for the next 40 years at family dinners. She listened, really listened, to stories. Not the polite nod and smile version. Not the thank you next routine. Actual human eye contact listening. Fans told her about journeys across countries, months of saving, sleepless nights, sacrifices stacked on top of sacrifices just to be there in that moment. For many of them, this wasn't just tennis. This was home, thousands of miles away. And Alex Eala treated it exactly that way. No rush, no exit glance. No body language saying, wrap it up. Just calm, grounded, unhurried presence in a moment that most players would have already left behind. And that's when Osaka stopped walking. Because what she was witnessing wasn't post-match routine. It wasn't PR. It wasn't obligation dressed up as kindness. It was something rarer. Something you can't fake, can't rehearse, and definitely can't manufacture on a practice court. It was connection. A player turning a routine loss into something meaningful. A crowd turning support into identity. And a young athlete still early in her career, showing a kind of impact that even seasoned champions spend years trying to figure out. From a distance, Osaka kept watching. Cameras caught her reaction in pieces. First surprise, then curiosity, then something quieter. Something deeper. Recognition. Because even for someone who has lived under global attention, constant scrutiny and pressure that doesn't politely knock before entering. This felt different. More intimate. More raw. More human than almost anything the sport usually produces. And when she finally spoke, her voice carried that disbelief. Not loud, not dramatic, just honest. I've never seen anything like this. And she meant it. Because this moment, it had nothing to do with rankings, nothing to do with draws, prize money, or projected career paths on a neat little chart. This was about something far harder to measure and impossible to ignore. It was about something numbers have never quite figured out how to measure. No stat sheet, no ranking system, no fancy graphic with percentages can really hold it together. Belonging, identity, that rare, almost electric feeling of being seen, truly seen, by someone who, let's be honest, had every reason to look the other way and head straight for the locker room. Because that's the normal move, right? But this was not normal. Naomi Osaka reportedly turned to someone beside her, still watching, still processing, and said it plainly. She lost. She could have just walked away, but she stayed for almost an hour. And then, a pause. Not just any pause, the kind that hangs in the air like a slow-motion replay, where everything suddenly feels bigger than the moment itself. Because right there in that quiet space, the scoreline basically packed its bags and left the building. 6-1, 6-4, irrelevant. First round exit, background noise. Lost to Leylah Fernandez? Just a footnote in a story that had already moved on. What remained was something professional sport doesn't hand out very often, and almost never on purpose. An athlete choosing presence over retreat, connection over convenience, humanity over that very strong, very understandable urge to say, nope, I'm out of here. Because let's be honest, after a tough match, the emotional checklist usually looks like this. Grab your bag, avoid eye contact, disappear quickly. Maybe replay every mistake in your head on the way out. That's the instinct. That's the survival mode. But Alex Eala? She flipped the script like she was changing ends after a set. And here's the twist. It didn't stay in Stuttgart. Oh no, this moment had wings. Within hours, clips were everywhere. Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube. If it had a play button, it had this moment on it. Millions of people, many of whom couldn't tell you the difference between a forehand and a backhand, suddenly stopped scrolling. Not for the tennis, for the person, because something about it felt real in a way that doesn't need commentary or slow-motion analysis. One post summed it up perfectly. This is why we love Alex. Win or lose, she never forgets where she comes from. Simple, direct, impossible to argue with. Another one? Even sharper. Naomi's face says everything. Even the champions are paying attention. And they were absolutely right. Because Osaka's reaction wasn't just another player watching from the sidelines. It carried weight. This is someone who in 2021 made a decision that shifted the entire conversation in professional sports. When she stepped away to protect her mental health, it wasn't just a personal move. It was a statement that echoed across locker rooms, press conferences, and late-night debates about pressure and expectation. She changed how athletes talk about what it actually costs to exist under constant observation. And because of that, she understands something most people don't. She knows how natural it is to want silence after a loss, to want distance, to want a quiet space where no one is watching, no one is asking questions, and nothing needs to be explained. That's not weakness. That's human. That's the body saying, we need a minute, or maybe an hour. And yet, Alex Eala did the opposite. When Osaka eventually spoke about the moment in a brief interview, she didn't go for the highlight reel comment. No flashy line, no dramatic exaggeration. She went for something real. She lost a tough match, she said. She could have been upset, she could have been frustrated, but she chose to be grateful. That's a choice, and it's not an easy one. And just like that, you could feel the weight of it, because that word, choice, does a lot of heavy lifting here. It's easy to be gracious when everything goes your way. It's easy to smile when the scoreboard is on your side. But in that moment, after a loss, with emotions still fresh and raw, that's where it gets complicated. And then Osaka paused again. Not a filler pause, not a what do I say next pause. The kind of pause that carries experience, memory, maybe even a few matches she'd rather not revisit. I've been in that position, she added. I've lost matches where all you want to do is leave, not talk, not see anyone. And she didn't finish the thought. She didn't have to, because anyone who's ever competed, even at a fraction of that level, already knows exactly how that sentence ends. You want to disappear. You want distance from the noise, from the questions, from your own thoughts, looping like a highlight reel you didn't ask for. And that's why what Osaka saw in Alex Eala wasn't just good sportsmanship. It wasn't a polite gesture or a well-timed moment of fan appreciation. It was something much deeper, something harder to fake, and even harder to sustain. Emotional strength in its most honest, unfiltered form. The ability to stay present when every instinct is practically shouting, "Leave now!" To stand there, in the middle of disappointment, and still give something genuine to the people who showed up for you. No script, no shortcuts, no exit plan. Just presence. I've lost matches and just wanted to disappear, Naomi Osaka said. Simple sentence. But wow, that one carries weight. Because anyone who's ever competed, even at a local club level, knows exactly what that feels like. That moment when the last point ends, the handshake happens, and all you want is the fastest possible route to somewhere quiet. Somewhere far away from scoreboards, cameras, and your own thoughts replaying every mistake like a greatest hits album you never asked for. And then she added, watching it all unfold in Stuttgart. Watching her handle it with that much grace, it was inspiring. It reminded me why I play. Now that's not just commentary, that's a full endorsement wrapped in lived experience. Because Osaka wasn't reacting to a highlight. She was reacting to something deeper, something that doesn't show up in match stats or post-match reports. And suddenly everything clicked into place. Because Alex Eala's connection with the Filipino community? This isn't some overnight phenomenon. This isn't a one-tournament storyline that fades as soon as the next event starts. No, this has been building. Quietly at first, then louder, then impossible to ignore, ever since her breakthrough at the Miami Open in 2025. That was the spark. And since then, her matches stopped being just matches. They became gathering points, meeting places, moments where sport, identity, pride, and raw emotion all collide into something that refuses to stay neatly categorized. Because when Alex Eala steps on court, it's not just about forehands and backhands anymore. It's about representation. And she's been open about where that journey started. Growing up with tennis in the Philippines wasn't exactly a luxury experience. Limited courts, scarce facilities, opportunities that felt more like rare sightings than everyday realities. Not exactly the kind of environment that screams future global contender, right? But here's where the story takes a turn. Recently, she described something completely different. When I go back to Manila, she said, it's hard to get courts. And that's actually a good thing. And you can almost hear the smile behind that statement. Because when she was younger, those courts were empty. Let that sink in for a second. From empty courts to fully booked ones. From scarcity of opportunity to demand overflowing. That's not just progress, that's transformation. And it's not just about her career. It's about what people now believe is possible for the Filipino diaspora scattered across the world. Europe, the Middle East, North America. This isn't just a tennis story. This is personal. Nurses in Dubai finishing long shifts and checking match updates. Engineers in California streaming matches between meetings. Caregivers in Canada setting alarms just to catch a glimpse of her playing halfway across the world. For them, Alex Eala represents something that rankings can't fully capture. She represents access. Where there used to be a wall, now there's a door. Where there used to be doubt, now there's a pathway. Where there used to be absence, now there's presence, loud, visible, undeniable presence. And the atmosphere around her? Even seasoned professionals have noticed. A veteran referee described it earlier this season with almost perfect precision. When players come from countries like the Philippines, the stadium starts to feel like a Davis Cup tie. And Stuttgart? Oh, Stuttgart delivered on that description and then some. National? Absolutely. Emotional? Completely. Loud? Let's just say the decibel levels probably needed their own ranking system. Because those fans didn't travel just for a tennis match. They traveled for something much bigger. A mirror. Something that reflected their identity back at them. Not quietly, not subtly, but on a global stage where it couldn't be ignored. They weren't just spectators sitting politely in their seats. They were participants. Part of the energy. Part of the story. Part of a moment that refused to behave like a typical tournament day. Flags still waving long after the match ended. Songs echoing through the concourse like the event had no intention of wrapping up anytime soon. The entire space holding on to that energy like it wasn't ready to let go. And right in the middle of all that, Alex Eala kept giving. To every outstretched hand, every name called from the stands, every fan who had crossed borders, literally crossed countries, just for a few seconds of connection. No shortcuts, no rushed gestures, just presence. One fan, still emotional, said through tears, she didn't have to do that. She could have just walked away, but she stayed. She hugged us. She thanked us. That's why we love her. And honestly, that says more than any analysis ever could. Because that's the kind of moment you can't script, can't coach, can't replicate in a training session. That's authenticity. That's why Osaka couldn't stop watching. Because what she was seeing wasn't just a young player handling a tough loss well. It was something deeper. I've seen struggle, Alex Eala has said. Even if I haven't lived all of it myself, I understand what it means. And I appreciate what I have. And that right there, that's not a press conference line. That's perspective. That's awareness. That's someone who understands the bigger picture beyond rankings, beyond results, beyond the constant chase for the next win. It shapes how she moves, how she interacts, how she shows up in moments where most people would quietly exit stage left. And that's exactly why she stayed on court for nearly an hour after losing. That's why those interactions don't feel transactional, not staged, not rushed, not part of some invisible checklist players are expected to complete before heading off court. That's why people respond the way they do. Because in a sport that is obsessed with results, rankings, and who beat who last Tuesday, Alex Eala is offering something completely different, something the scoreboard can't measure. A reason to care that exists outside the numbers, outside the draws, outside the endless debates about form and momentum. Because let's be honest, tennis can sometimes feel like a spreadsheet with sneakers. Wins, losses, percentages, projections, it's all there. But moments like this, they don't fit into neat columns. When Naomi Osaka said, "She's special, I hope she knows that. I hope she never loses that." It didn't sound like casual locker room praise. It wasn't a polite compliment you toss out after a match and forget 5 minutes later. No, that sounded like recognition. The kind that comes from someone who understands exactly what it costs to stay open in a sport that constantly demands more, and somehow, still more. Because staying present after a loss? That's not easy. Staying human when everything around you is screaming for results? Even harder, and Osaka knows that better than most. Which is why that moment carried weight far beyond a viral clip. It wasn't just something people watched, liked, and scrolled past. It became a reminder. A very clear, very powerful reminder of what tennis can look like at its absolute best. Not just competition, but connection. Not just points, but people. Not just pressure, but presence. And just when you think the sport might pause for a second to appreciate that, nope. Tennis doesn't do pauses. The tour keeps moving like a train that never checks if you're ready before it leaves the station. Because while Stuttgart gave us this unforgettable moment, the clay season is already knocking on the door like, that was nice, now let's get back to business. Next stop, Madrid. The Madrid Open, running from April 21st through May 3rd, a WTA 1000 event that doesn't exactly believe in easing players into things gently. No soft landing, no warm-up buffer, just straight into high-stakes matches on clay that has a personality of its own. Madrid clay isn't just clay, it's faster, trickier, and just chaotic enough to keep everyone guessing. Then comes Rome. The Italian Open from May 6th through the 18th. Another elite field, another level up, another test waiting around every corner. If Madrid asks questions, Rome follows up with, "Are you sure about that answer?" And then, the main stage, the one that doesn't need introductions, French Open in Paris, where everything converges. The history, the pressure, the expectations, the headlines waiting to be written before the first ball is even struck. Clay courts that don't forgive easily, rallies that stretch longer than your patience sometimes, matches that demand not just skill but resilience, creativity, and just a little bit of stubbornness. And yes, the matches ahead will test Alex Eala in ways Stuttgart didn't. Different opponents, different stakes, different pressures. Because that's what the tour does. It keeps asking new questions over and over again. But here's the part that matters. Stuttgart already showed the world something those upcoming matches can't take away. Not Madrid, not Rome, not even Paris. Because what happened there wasn't about a result. It was about a choice, a player, even in defeat, choosing to lean in instead of stepping back. Choosing connection instead of convenience. Choosing to stay when the easiest option would have been to quietly disappear. And then there was the crowd. 55,000 people who didn't show up just to watch a scoreboard update in real time. They came for something else. Something shared. Something emotional. Something that belonged to all of them in a way that no final score ever could. Because you can't manufacture that. You can't schedule it, promote it, or recreate it on demand. That kind of moment, that's not strategy. That's identity. That's presence. That's just who she is.